1315 AD. Anatolia, the heartland of Byzantium, is in flames. Refugees are pouring into Constantinople, causing food shortages. The frontier, held for centuries, has collapsed. Throughout the ages, Anatolia has served as the heartland of Byzantium, proving its worth in the Dark Ages following the Arab conquests and Bulgarian invasion. During this period, the Balkan frontier was overrun. With most of the economy remaining in Anatolia, this would prove to be a reliable base, with heavy mountainous terrain serving as a natural defense against invasions. Anatolia also hosted a long heritage of many symbolic and spiritual cities important to Christianity. Nicaea hosted the famous council that set the Christian doctrine, and Nicomedia, which was the place of Constantine's baptism. Following the sack of Constantinople in 1204, Anatolia would prove its worth once again with the Byzantine remnant of Nicaea. While only having holdings in Asia Minor, cities such as Prousa, Philadelphia, Magnesia, and Smyrna remained the lifeline for the Nicaean state. With these holdings, the emperors of the Laskarid dynasty were able to retake Balkan territories in Thrace and Macedonia. This would lead to the recapture of Constantinople itself. Before his death, Theodore II Lascaris had alienated the Latin mercenaries and aristocracy of Anatolia, which Michael VIII used to usurp the throne from the regency. With Michael in charge, he purged all those loyal or anyone with ties to the Laskarid dynasty. That includes the Akrati, frontiersmen, freemen who settled on the borders of Anatolia, offering local, autonomous defense against the Turks for state-granted privileges such as tax exemption. This institution was destroyed to remove dissent after the coup, to the detriment of the state. Michael VIII inadvertently opened the borders of Anatolia to be pillaged and settled by the Turkic beyliks. With the removal of the Akrati and focus on the Balkans, Anatolia was left neglected and vulnerable. The new emperor had inherited a tenuous position. Due to his father's extensive bribes and spending, the imperial treasury was left exhausted. The land of Anatolia was already slipping under his father's reign, and the widely unpopular church union with the papacy had delegitimized the empire in the eyes of many. It is due to this situation that Andronikos had some of his most questionable decisions made, those being disbanding the navy and the over-reliance of foreign mercenaries instead of native Byzantines to make up the field army. Up until the 1300s, Anatolia was relatively stable, as in 1293, Alexios Philanthropinos was appointed to command and govern all armies in Anatolia, barring the Ionian coast. He was an effective general, scoring a series of victories in 1294 and 1295 against the Meander Valley Turks. It was said that so many prisoners were taken that the price of a Turkish slave was lower to even that of a sheep. Other Turks surrendered and formed a part of Philanthropinos' army. This was done with the help of Cretan troops that were repatriated from Venice to Byzantium under Michael VIII. Those same soldiers would be the general's downfall. Bolstered by success and encouraged by his troops, the general rebelled against Andronikos II. Andronikos was able to stall, offering the general the title of Caesar. In 1295, the Cretan soldiers were bribed by a loyal governor and blinded the general, and subsequently turned him in. Turkish attacks increasingly grew after such events. leading to the campaign of Michael IX in 1302, focusing around the area of Magnesia. Michael's host was around 10,000 men, with more than half being Alan mercenaries. The mercenaries would resort to looting Byzantine possessions and were reluctant to follow orders. The morale of Michael's army was incredibly low, which resulted in a timid strategy recommended by his advisors. With the Byzantines avoiding battle, Turkic raiders raided the countryside and seized advantageous terrain. When the Turks finally moved in for battle, Michael IX's force disintegrated, with the Alans fleeing, ending the campaign in failure. Due to the continued loss of Anatolian lands, Andronikos II turned to the Catalans in the year of 1303. He hired 6,500 Catalan mercenaries under Roger de Flor to campaign against the Turks. Although demanding extortionate prices, they came with success, driving back the Turks in parts of Asia Minor. At Philadelphia, the Catalans were able to liquidate a large host of Turks, thought to be of the Aidenids. The Turkish dead are estimated in the multiple thousands. However, the Catalans were difficult to restrain, often looting the reconquered territory. This prompted Michael IX, or another Byzantine official, to orchestrate the assassination of their leader, Roger de Flor. He was assassinated on the 3rd of April 1305, followed by a massacre of 1,300 Catalans. This angered the remaining mercenaries, prompting them to begin a 2-year pillage in revenge. Under a new leader, Berenguer de Antonka, they continued their pillaging. The Catalans, in their expeditions, failed to check Ottoman power, devastating neighboring Turkish beyliks and the Byzantines themselves. This would pave the way for future Ottoman expansion due to the exhaustion of their neighbors. Led by Michael IX, the Byzantines would dedicate their resources to combat the rampaging Catalan company in Thrace, forming an army of at least 10,000. This left Anatolia open to further Turkish attack. Eventually, the Catalan mercenaries moved on from Thrace and went south to loot Thessaly. They would go on to claim the Duchy of Athens for themselves in 1311 and would remain there until 1379. Andronikos III was much more energetic than his grandfather, personally leading the army in his campaigns. After retiring his grandfather to a monastery, Andronikos III set out to save the dire situation in Anatolia. By 1328, the situation had rapidly deteriorated. With only the major cities of Nicaea and Nicomedia left in Bithynia, both of which were under siege by the Ottoman Sultan, forcing urgent action. Andronikos III, with his trusted friend, John VI Cantacuzenos, announced the expedition into Anatolia, aimed at reclaiming lost land and saving the besieged cities. The plan was to link up with the city of Nicomedia, re-establishing control over the region, before marching to relieve the siege of Nicaea. However, the Ottoman leader, Orhan, heard of the expedition and set out to meet the enemy in battle. The two armies met near Pelekanon, with Andronikos III being intercepted before reaching Nicomedia. The numbers of each army are unclear, with some sources claiming Andronikos only had 4,000 men under his banner, compared to the Ottomans' 8,000. Although outnumbered, it can be said that the quality of troops fielded by the Byzantine emperor were superior to the Turkish host. The Ottomans were led by Osman's son, Orhan, who had encamped the army on a hill, blocking the road to Nicomedia. On June 10th, 300 Turkish cavalry archers skirmished with the Byzantines in an effort to lure them up the hill. However, once the skirmishers were driven off, they refused to go further. The two armies clashed for several days, with the Byzantines withstanding several downhill attacks from the Ottomans. Soon it became clear that the battle had turned into a war of attrition. Being outnumbered 2-1, exhaustion would soon consume the entire Byzantine army. Seeing the unsustainability of the fight, Andronikos III makes the decision to withdraw. The Byzantines begin an organized retreat to the coast. The Turks, seeing this, launch a counterattack. In the intense fighting, the emperor is wounded. Although the Byzantines were able to withstand the onslaught, by nightfall, the news of the emperor's injury had spread, inflicting panic among the soldiers. The Byzantines, with the cover of darkness, continue their retreat, nearing the coast and their ships. The Ottomans become aware of this nightly maneuver and attack once more. By this point, the Byzantines are exhausted and demoralized, finally buckling under the immense pressure. They are routed. The remaining troops who managed to survive escape by sea and return to Constantinople with Andronikos III. The last attempt to restore the lost Anatolian holdings was destroyed in the Battle of Pelekanon. Nicaea and Nicomedia, the heart of Byzantine resistance after the Fourth Crusade, fell to the Ottoman Turks. This marked the end of significant Byzantine rule over Anatolia. Overall, Michael VIII's huge financial expenditures and the disbandment of the Akrati created the problem of a vulnerable Anatolia. Andronikos II's over-reliance on mercenaries to cover the ranks of the field army proved crippling to Byzantine power. Time and time again, the mercenaries would flee at the slightest difficulty, leaving the remaining native Byzantine troops to fend for themselves. By the time of Andronikos III, it was much too late. With drained resources from the civil war with his grandfather, there was little he could do to reverse the fortune in Anatolia. An argument could be made that his expedition could have had success if it was approached differently. If you want to relive this tumultuous period, and perhaps change it for the better, join our Roblox Byzantine group, where you can experience Constantinople and participate in large-scale battles.